Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm your host Gyro, and today I'm introducing you to my newest guide, beginner-friendly guide for Path of Exile Ultimate League 3.14, which is called, very simply, Holy Flame Totem Hierophant. So, as I said to you on the screen, as you've been paying attention, I'm sure, if you are one of those people who looks at this and thinks, wow, this is awesome, it looks really easy and it looks really safe, then this build is very much for you. But if you are one of those people who perhaps is not very new to Path of Exile and maybe somehow you've fallen to, I'm gonna say, prejudice of thinking that totem builds are for noobs or just for people who don't know how to play, whatever. So if you're basically feeling negative about totem builds, I do not think that it's my job to convince you otherwise. It's my job to educate people here who are new to this and who perhaps have not just yet known how awesome these builds can be and how simple, how easy they are. So if you are prejudiced against this build, I'm so sorry, this guide, this build is probably not for you. So I'll see you in the next video where we'll talk about something else. But if you're still here, if you're very interested how to make your life very easy and very enjoyable in Path of Exile, please stick around, let's talk about it. Let's jump straight into talking about the playstyle, unique playstyle of this build. And this playstyle coverage is going to we were going to talk also about the pros and the cons straight away as part of this little segment. Well, the playstyle is unique, where you let your totems do the fighting for you, basically. It is very similar, spiritually similar, I'm gonna say, to the classic minion summoner builds. But I find this one much easier, as minions require more involved management. And they also follow you around, so if you move, your minions run after you. Totems are unique in a way that they just stay there where you put them into the ground, which allows you to, for example, open a door, throw in a few totems, walk away behind the wall far away, stand there and laugh while your fire sticks kill everything for you. Totem builds obviously vary based on what kind of spell gem you enable as a totem, which you can do in Path of Exile, and this particular build is even more basic as it relies on the actual totem gem, not requiring any additional spell totem support gems. We will be working with Holy Fire Totem exclusively here and having a lot of fun with it. If I had to mention any cons of this build, I have one very good one for you to consider. It is that once you have discovered totem builds, it is very hard to play anything else, at least for me, at least in my humble opinion. So there you go, it's a very clear con that you need to be very aware of if you want to continue exploring and playing multiple builds. As far as leveling is concerned, I would pick up something that hits groups of enemies at a distance, such as the Freezing Pulse gem that you're gonna get very early on, and level with it until about 12, when you will pick up Holy Totem, and then with Holy Totem you just stick with it for the rest of the game, while boosting your spell, elemental and specifically fire damage, as well as life and mana pools. It's as easy as that, honestly, and we'll talk a little bit more about the leveling path in the passive skills tree section of this video. Now, main gems and skills. As always, I am using Tabula Rasa simple 6-linked sockets robe for maximum support of my main skill, Holy Flame Totem. But you don't have to do that, and even just a 4-linked sockets piece of gear would work fine until you get something better. The main group of gems is, unsurprisingly, Holy Flame Totem, our hero, Combustion Support for extra fire damage, multiple totems support as soon as you can get them, I like to have a lot of totems, Infused Channeling Support, which gives us more damage, Ignite Proliferation Support to spread fires, and added fire damage as a flat multiplier, flat addition to the fire damage. I do run a gem group that revolves around the Flame Golem, supported by the Unbound Ailments and Elemental Proliferation support gems. I also ran a Clarity Aura for extra mana regen, which I've then turned off to get a bit of my reserved mana back in the end game, in the early end game, as Clarity honestly wasn't doing all that much for me anymore, and I could just use extra spare mana for defensive effect. For movement, I have started by using Flame Dash, which is a fantastic mobility spell in itself, and I also use Withering Step most of the time. I started using Flesh and Stone Aura actually quite late into the game for the Sand Stance and blinding nearby enemies while reducing damage done to me from a distance. It doesn't, at this stage, it doesn't feel like a massive contribution to my safety, but I think, you know, it matters, so I run it. For tough spots, I run my very basic 2-gem cast when damage taken setup, that where the gem is invoking the Mortal Call gem, and that proc reduces all damage taken by about a quarter, which is actually great, and it saved me many times, so I highly recommend it. I will once again point out, as I did in the previous video, that the Mortal Call gem needs to be kept at level 1, maximum level 2, to make sure that the threshold of damage received before it invokes the connected gem is as low as possible. You don't want to have to take too much damage before it starts protecting you. You want it proccing all the time. Finally, in my boots, I was simply leveling an extra gem, Divine Ire, which was on my radar as an alternative totem setup, because I heard that Divine Ire totems actually are fairly fun to play with, which I might test on this character after publishing this guide to see for myself if it's any better than my Holy Flame totem, and I will report to you in one of the following videos. Now let's quickly talk about the gear. With gear, as it wasn't my first character, I was lucky to have Tabula Rasa, non-essential but helpful robe to have the main skill with all imaginable support gems in it. I also have used Aberath's Horn wand, which simply boosted my fire damage. I simply had it for it. But then I replaced it with this Rune Dagger very recently, Heartbreaker, which gives me extra mana and massively increases my spell damage. Asenath's Mark Iron Circlet Helmet increases my cast speed and mana regeneration rate, which is very welcome. And Shaper's Seed Amulet increases mana regeneration further while giving me a substantial health regeneration rate as well. I've also picked up the Deep One's Hide shield. That, look, it's not an optimal shield for this build, but it's the best I have at the moment, and it simply gives me a pretty massive fire resistance and increases my armor and evasion, while cursing enemies with vulnerability on block. And you will see that in my passive skills in the build itself, I've actually boosted block chance quite significantly too, so it's kinda an added benefit that works fine for me, at least so far. For the belt, I've picked up on one of my previous characters and reusing it on this character, I've picked up Belt of the Deceiver, mostly using it here for elemental resistances and any added benefit of the effect that close by enemies are intimidated. The rest of the stats on this build are very suboptimal for this build. So I'm just highlighting that I'm not pretending that I have anyhow optimized gear. I obviously don't. But if you've missed the start of the video, this guide was made for absolute beginners. They wouldn't even have this gear, and they don't need it to enjoy this build. It's just what I use and it helps me a bit compared to just I don't know, basic yellow rares. Now my passive skills tree shows to you yet another build in progress at the stage of me only just entering early endgame and going through the lowest tier of Atlas mapping. As always, link to this build, like I said already, is in the description of this video, so you will see you will follow it and it will take you to the Path of Building tool that opens in your browser, and it will allow you to take your time to zoom in and copy the build properly. As a quick summary, in a nutshell, you start as a Templar and you go towards Sanctity, a larger node over here, and you start making your way towards the top left corner of the passive skills tree if you like. You can zoom out by using your mouse button, my mouse wheel. You go kind of via the Holy Dominion node, picking up Light of the Divinity, Faith and Steel, and then going kind of taking a detour here, short detour here a bit down to pick up Divine Judgment for a substantial increase to your elemental damage. Then you return to your path to the top left corner, going all the way up to the Ancestral Bond for extra summoned totem. At this point, you need to be okay with basically stopping to do any direct spell damage and starting to fully rely on your totems. If you prefer to wait until you have multiple totems support gem to, you know, to have a lot of totems there, then don't take this major node just yet and come back to it later. Then I make my way towards kind of the top right, if you like, of the tree, where I go past and take Mind Over Matter node, as long as you are not at that point in time, as long as you're not having any massive mana issues. Otherwise, this is another one to wait with a little bit longer and pick it up a little later, because it quite substantially boosts your survivability, but it will also start hitting your mana very heavily and you'll be spamming mana potions, mana flasks all the time. So it's up to you, really. We are taking Quick Recovery and boosting our totems a little bit with Shamanistic Fury here, the node, and filling out then after that a whole bunch of something that would be more typical for witch builds, because it's much closer to where the witch's path usually starts in the passive skill tree. Generally, we're going for boosting of our mana pool, mana regeneration, that kind of stuff, and we go here towards block and towards increase of our spell damage based on the amount of mana we have. So that's actually a very substantial, very important point to make here. And like I already said, rather than continuing to point out every single node to you, I will just once again recommend that you take this initial direction and then follow the link in the description of the video to the full build in the path of building. Now, very quickly talking about Ascendancy. For beginners, Ascendancy direction, you know, you pick Hierophant, and then during your first labyrinth completion, around level 33, you pick Pursuit of Faith. Then you go around level 55, during your second go through the labyrinth, you pick Ritual of Awakening. These two major nodes, this kind of corner, little corner there, it will boost your survivability and totem power massively. So that's the main thing. That's kind of like a staple thing for totemic based Hierophant builds. During the following Ascendancy runs, runs that I haven't done yet at the moment of recording of this video, I plan to take the Arcane Blessing, and then I want to take Illuminated Devotion to benefit from the Arcane Surge procs and become completely immune to elemental ailments such as Ignited, Chilled or Frozen, which again, as soon as you start mapping, as soon as you get into tough spots, it will boost your survivability substantially. And this is about it. That's all there is to say about this build, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it and you're going to try it for yourself. It's really fun if you're not one of those people who need to be pressing 15 buttons constantly to feel like they are a pro and they are playing a game properly. I personally don't judge, but I play for fun. And the more chilled my gameplay is, the more relaxed I am during my gameplay, the happier I am. I hope so are you. And this build definitely has made me very happy, so hopefully it will make you happy too. If this is your cup of tea, if you enjoyed this video, first of all, please give it a quick like, okay? That's very much appreciated. And subscribe to the channel for similar videos if you haven't already. More videos are coming, currently with about 1 video per week. So I'll be speaking with you once again very, very soon. So see you next time.